Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome. I see everyone rolling in here, so I'll just give it a minute. Again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining. It's morning over here for me in Toronto. My name is Lindsay Hilcoat, and I'm from Seed Global Education, and I'm happy to be your host for today's Masterclass. And we're excited to have Carlson School of Management from the University of Minnesota here with us today. They've got a great presentation and some engagement around analytics, and we're going to talk a little bit more about their session soon, but I'd love to invite all of you to introduce yourselves in the chat. So utilize the chat function and just let us know where you're joining in from today, what city, what country, and say hello. All right, so let us know what city and country you're joining in from. Hi, Vivek. Okay, great. Janvi is here from Ahmedabad. We've got Kuldeep. What city are you from, Kuldeep? Moses from Nigeria. Great. Lots of different cities, countries. We've got Saudi Arabia. Soha from Bangalore. Welcome, everyone. So if you're just joining us, please let us know where you're joining in from. Hi, Lynette from Kenya. Fantastic. We've got some people into the afternoon, some people into the evening. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Now that we've had everyone join, I will get started. Nana, hello from Ghana. Great. Okay. So once again, my name is Lindsay Hilcoat, and I'm from Seed Global Education. And if this is the first time you've been joining us, we are working with top universities around the world, like our masterclass host today, the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota, and top students like yourselves. And today we've got expert speakers lined up to deliver our masterclass session on cracking the analytics code, Carlson's Guide to Success in the USA. And we also host in-person events around the world in India, Middle East, Africa, and starting in 2026, Southeast Asia. So we hope to have the opportunity to meet you in person as well. We also have an impressive scholarship program totaling over $6.5 million, including Minnesota Carlson, who has 6 awards and scholarships for top students, covering up to 100% of tuition. And 3 of those today are related to the program that we'll be focusing on, which is the Master of Science in Business Analytics. We're excited to be welcoming them to really focus on careers. We know that career outcomes are important when deciding on a business school and really navigating what is a career like in analytics in the US and helping you figure out and navigate how your education can connect with your career goals and how you can successfully set up yourselves for a career in analytics in the US. So to get started, what we're going to do is start with a poll and understand a little bit more about what you are looking for. So you'll see the poll pop up on your screen. And just answer one. So which part of the job search process do you feel that you need the most support with? So maybe it's all of them, but just pick one. Is it your resume and LinkedIn optimization? Is it interview prep? Is it networking and informational interviews? Understanding US recruitment timelines? Identifying target goals and companies? Or building technical skills? Okay, so we've got a lot of variation. I'm sure we're going to be covering most of this today, but let's just see what you're most worried about or what you would like to learn most about in today's session. Okay, I'm going to give it another 5 seconds if you haven't submitted your answer yet. Okay, no clear winner yet. So let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we can see here, tied are resume and LinkedIn optimization and also interview prep. So a lot of evenness on what you're looking to prepare for. And we're going to be covering a lot of this today. So you know how to set up a successful career in the US, specifically focusing today on the analytics space. So thank you so much, everyone. So the way that today's session is going to work is that I will be closing the chat in one moment, but we will be enabling the Q&A function at the bottom. So when you navigate to the bottom, you can put in any questions that you have throughout the session. Try to make them a little bit more generic about something that everybody would be looking to learn about. If you have specific questions as well, we might be able to get to that at some point through the chat. But what we'll be doing is waiting till the very end, going through the Q&A and being able to live answer the most important questions that you're seeing there. You can also upvote. So if there's a particular question that's already asked, you can upvote that if you really want to hear more on that throughout the session. So use that to stay engaged within the chat, within the session, and we will be trying to answer as many questions as we can throughout the session. And with that, I'm excited to welcome our first speaker. So we'll first introduce our first speaker and then move on to the main part of the session. And our first speaker is Garth Herbert, and he is from the recruitment team, the Associate Director of Recruiting for the Carlson School of Management. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about the University of Minnesota Carlson School of Management and some of the programs that we're going to be showcasing today. So I'm going to invite Garth to share his screen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, hopefully that looks good to go. Let me know if anything looks off there. Okay, perfect. Well, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time zone you're joining us from. I hope everyone's having a great week so far. My name is Garth Herbert. I'm an Associate Director of Recruiting for Minnesota Carlson's Graduate Business Programs. In particular, I focus on our Master of Science in Business Analytics, which is the program we're going to be focusing on today. Before we have Aaron Shamley come on and discuss some of the potential career outcomes and career questions that you may have, I did just want to give just the briefest primer on our program that we have, just so you all have some context as far as like what we offer here at Minnesota Carlson as we're preparing for that conversation. So our Master of Science in Business Analytics program is a 12-month full-time in-person program. The goal of that program is to help you learn and develop your analytics and your technical skills, whether it's Python, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and then taking that and also combining it with a consulting skill set, right? So how do you take what you find in the data and create business strategy from that? How do you communicate what you find in the data to business executives? These are the types of skills that you're going to be developing in this cohort-based program. This program is really aimed at recent graduates, I would say mostly. Our average amount of work experience for students coming into this program is around 3 years. We don't have a work experience requirement for this program, so we do allow students to come directly from undergrad. Though I will say if students are coming directly from undergrad, we do prefer that they have at least some internships. This program begins in the fall of every year. So we only allow for a single intake. And again, it's a full-time in-person program here in Minneapolis. It's also a 45 credit program total. So fairly fast-paced, fairly intensive, but we really do focus on trying to get our students as much information as we can within that short time frame so that they can then go out and start getting that return on investment. This is a STEM designated program. So all of you here that are joining us from different countries know that STEM designation does get you some additional OPT time after you graduate. You can also see some of the impressive average starting salary and sign-on bonus numbers there at the bottom of the screen, which I'm sure Aaron will be discussing a bit later in our presentation today. You can also see some items there on the class profile over the left. That can give you a general idea of the kinds of students that are coming into our business analytics program. But by no means are these minimums. We do have, these are averages, so we have some students that are above these numbers and below these numbers. We see all kinds of different students from all kinds of different backgrounds come into this program. What's really important to us is that students have a real passion for the field of analytics. Something else that's really important to this program too that I'll highlight before I really dive into the application piece here is that applied nature of this program. So you're not just going to be learning in a classroom setting, you're also going to be applying what you're learning to actual client projects through projects with our Carlson Analytics Lab. And experiential learning is just so important to this program. And so that, again, that combination of learning those technical skills, but also learning how to apply those technical skills is so vital to this program. So now that you have that context, here's a bit about the application itself. Just for the sake of time, I won't be going into every single item here, but here are some important points that I always like to highlight for students that are just getting introduced to our program. The first are our prerequisites. So we have two prerequisites for this program, and it's a quantitative prerequisite and a programming prerequisite. The quantitative prerequisite can be covered by a whole number of different types of quantitative courses that you took in undergrad, whether it was statistics or calculus or linear algebra. If you're ever curious if a certain class covers a prerequisite, you're always welcome to reach out to me and I'm happy to clarify. That prerequisite needs to be completed at the time of application versus our programming prerequisite, which can be covered by taking a class in any of these list of programming languages you see up on the screen. That does not have to be completed at the time of application. You can be admitted without having programming experience, though you will be required to complete it by the time orientation comes around. I would still say it's still preferred if you have this by the time of application, though. Another question I often get about this program, do you require the GMAT or GRE? If you meet a specific GPA threshold, so if your cumulative undergraduate GPA was equivalent to at least a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale, the GMAT or GRE is optional. If you do not meet that GPA threshold, you would be required to submit a GMAT or GRE with your application. I know a lot of you out there might have different GPA scales besides 4.0. That's totally fine. If you're ever curious, if you're ever not sure whether or not you meet this threshold, then you could always reach out to me and I'd be happy to clarify for you. But I would say, in general, if you had what your school considers to be a B average, you would qualify for the test being optional. The other thing I'll highlight here on the left is the deadlines. Our next deadline is January 15th, so a little over a month. So plenty of time to put together a great application. I'm always happy to work with students and help them develop an amazing application in time for that deadline there. And the other application deadline I'll point out here is March 15th, which is our final deadline for international applicants who are residing outside the U.S. The last two things I'll highlight, and then I'll go ahead and pass things off to Aaron, is that we do have scholarships for this program. You're automatically reviewed for all admissions-based scholarships just by submitting your application. And then we also have those exciting seed scholarships as well. I'd highly encourage you, reach out to your seed representative, ask them about the scholarships, and they can definitely let you know how to go about applying for that process. And then the last thing I'll mention too is the program recently decided to lower their tuition price. So if you go check out our website, you can see that new lower tuition price, something we're really excited about just to make the program more affordable for our students is something we're super excited about. So those are just a few things I wanted to highlight for you all before, as like a primer, as some context before we dive into the rest of the presentation today. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to post those in the Q&A. You can also send an email to me or our program directly. You can see msba@umn.edu up on the screen there on the slide. You can reach out to us. We're always happy to stay connected, but I'm also happy to answer questions today as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Garth. That was great information. And also remember that Carlson is offering an application fee waiver for those that are interested and qualified for the program and have attended today. So please reach out to us if you're interested in that, and we'll give you a little bit more information about that later on. And I'm going to invite our next speaker to come on and share her screen as well. And that's Erin Shamley. And Erin Shamley is from Carlson's Career Center. And we'll be speaking a little bit more today about the MSBA and developing a career in that space. So I'll pass it over to you, Erin.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Shamley. As Lindsay mentioned, I'm an Associate Director and Career Coach in the Carlson Business Career Center. So a little bit of background on me. I've been here specifically with this program, working as the MSBA Career Coach for the last 8 years. And I have been doing career services for, I think I'm at like 15 or 16 years. So I'm really young. But I started my career out at Columbia University and worked at NYU for a long time. And it's my absolute joy to work with this program and really dive deep into what does analytics recruiting look like. So I'm going to go through a number of things here. Let me just start with the agenda. My goal today is talk about a little bit of the current market trends. A lot of you are here a lot probably because what does this thing look like? What is happening right now? I want to also share a little bit about what our career outcomes have looked like in the past and are kind of where we're at right now, and then also how our career center works with you. I reference ourselves to the CBCC quite a bit, and talk more and get more in depth with that. And I'm happy to answer any questions along the way. I pulled this chart up a little bit, and the reality is there is a strong demand for analytics talent. This chart is actually coming from the World Economic Forum, the Future of Jobs report from this last year. As we know, with the world of AI, things are changing so drastically. So yes, this is kind of a chart of like where they think this is going to go and where the fastest growing jobs are going to be. But the reality is, we're still growing, we're still in demand. But what this chart, and the chart of it might be a little bit hard to see, but what I pulled out on the left side is those top growing jobs and the ones that are more a little bit related to a lot of where our students have gone in the past. So we look at the big data specialists, AI and ML specialists. Those ones get a little bit more on the technical side. And I know not everybody who comes to this program is really focused on getting that specific. But also, if you look at the data analysts and data scientists, we're at that rate, it's growing 41% by 2030. I just looked it up again just yesterday, and I think it was like a 35% by 2032. So it's still in that growth mindset. And part of the reality is that there's a lot of analytics talent, and everybody is learning how to be part of the analytics. A lot of other things that I've seen too is just the organizations across industries, from tech, finance to consulting, retail, healthcare, beyond. There's so many different areas where people are using that. So it's a fun place to be, that it's still growing and it's still morphing as we go through different changes in the job market. So think about it, thinking about that, we've had a lot of changes. There is still a lot of changes. So thinking about the expectation. So hiring has been fluctuating. It has softened a little bit, I would say, over the last couple of years, 2022. We think about with COVID and like just, it's been a very much like a little bit of like a roller coaster, but I wouldn't say it's going down, right? I mean, it's kind of a little bit more on that side, but we're seeing it's softened, really. That's really the best word I would say. So there's a huge, huge need for it, and it's still coming, but it's changed a little bit. So with the rise of AI, that is one of the things too with this program. We have that area that you can focus on AI, and that I would say is extremely important in the market, because as you know, you have to have your head in the sand not to realize that AI is just everywhere. So we really focus on that and really thinking about how can you incorporate that into every aspect of your analytics degree, whether you decide to go less technical or more technical. And I'll get into that in a minute. I know most of you are international students that are kind of considering that. I would say that's a huge fear conversation that I have. I will say this program has been predominantly, we've had a lot of international students. So even though I'm not in that law or illegal aspect of that, I work with so many of them and have gone through that. Or companies are still open to that. Things have, with a lot of the competition, and some of the things that have come out with the political climate, it has softened a little bit as well. But I am still seeing every day, I'm getting students that are getting jobs, and getting interviews and that kind of thing. It just is sometimes a little bit slower, to be perfectly honest. But what I will say is the things that makes the biggest difference is that how has that changed? The reality is the top three things that people are looking for is that creative problem solving, showing your ability to learn quickly, and effective communication. And so those are things that I love about this Carlson MSBA program, is because it really hones in on, we're not just talking technical, we're also focused on how can you communicate that in a world that's changing. And with the world of AI, being able to marry and just to merge that technical and the communication piece is just, it's always been important, but it's just that much more important in the world that we're living in. And MSBA, this Carlson MSBA program, hands down, I see so many students successful in it because of that. that emphasis that we have. So let me get into a little bit of what our MSBA program. This is just a snapshot or image of where students have gone in the past. Financial services, we have 38% that have recently gone. It continues to be that top industry for us. Capital One is an organization that we see a lot of students go into. Consulting is that next highest, and it's typically been higher. We've had a lot of students that have gone into McKinsey in the past, but it's also a lot of other companies such as like Leighton View Analytics or Mathco or Axtria or other places that are a little bit of that and more analytics consulting and those types of things. You're working with some really cool companies like Gap or Walmart or Uber, but you're kind of like in a consulting specific area. You can see the average salaries, as I said too. It's really, I mean, it's very good salaries. It's very high, especially for some of these industries that are, consistently bringing in great talent. At the bottom, we have a years of experience, and I wanted to leave that on this page too, because as Garth said, I would say majority of people that come into this program do have a couple of years of experience. And to be honest, I find that, especially in the market right now, that is really, really helpful regardless of whether you're coming from a software engineering background or if you're coming from like more of a less technical background. Being able to have some of that like real work experience can make a big difference in terms of your job search later. But we see students successful across the board. So wherever you're at, I really encourage you to talk to our team to kind of say like what would make the most sense for you. And we're really looking to help you with that. Some common MSBA job areas and titles. Obviously, on the left, we have a lot of data science, business intelligence, internal and external consulting. So I get a lot of students that come in and say, I want to do consulting. And what I always encourage students to think about is that what's great about analytics and data science and a lot of these roles is that consulting is a lot of different things. So a lot of people think I want to go to McKinsey and be a consultant. A lot of people that go to McKinsey might be a data scientist and then they're working as a consultant. Or a lot of analytics people might go into these different areas and they might say, okay, well, I am like you are working in a consulting in their data science team, but they are consulting with the marketing department and the finance department and the supply chain department to be thinking about it from a whole. And so that is really, really common within these like data science and analytics spaces. And so that's what I think is really fun because a lot of people really come in wanting that type of helping to solve people's problems. I have starred a little bit of the senior data analyst, data scientist. I would say those are standard, like still very, very typical and kind of the biggest areas where we see students be successful. What I'm seeing more and more is that combination as analytics has grown and as more and more people have gained experience in analytics or in some of these more technical skills, that area to be able to say, oh, I have experience in supply chain and analytics, or I understand fraud and analytics. And so being able to marry that domain knowledge along with some of these things. So even if you're coming from a background, you might want to pivot or that kind of thing, still being able to showcase that you're like, I have this interest. I love solving. I'm really passionate or very interested in marketing or product or whatever it is. And I want to use all this great stuff that I'm learning within this MSBA program to be able to think about customer segmentation and how we can really get and reach out to our customers. So thinking about that, and it doesn't have to be a full-time, like a very specific experience, but being able to say, I am passionate about this, and employers love that. I can't stress that enough. So where do our MSBA students go? So this is actually within the last couple of years. For a long time, we had a really good partnership. We had a ton of people going to Amazon for a long time. And so that West Coast area that percentage was a lot higher for a few years. This fluctuates quite a bit. Some of it depends on where our students are coming from. If we have a lot of students that are originally from the Midwest that might want to stay here, I find a lot of our international students are like, all right, I'm open in Minnesota, but I heard it's cold, so maybe I'll like come here and then I want to go to the coast, right? We get the whole gamut. Lately, I would say I'm seeing a huge trend in students going to the East Coast. So we've actually had probably more students getting offered opportunities in particularly within the New York City area, New Jersey. Seen some people go to Boston and Washington, D.C., especially with that Capital One connection. And then obviously continued, there's more Seattle and Chicago and Minneapolis, but most people are going towards cities. But I just find this interesting because there's really opportunities and we have alumni kind of all over the country. Companies hiring our students. So this is just from the last couple of years. Obviously, we have a lot more companies where people have gone than this. But I would just point out a few, like just within the this last class, we've had at least 2 offers that have gone to CVS Health. We have one student that just went to Target. Um, let's see, Capital One is always a big one. I think this year alone, we have like 4 or 5 students that have received offers there. And so in Optum, there's been a couple, which I don't always see. But these are companies that consistently are bringing in and talent. We have a lot of great alumni that are willing to and wanting to can make those connections. But it used to be a lot more that we would get like, 10 or 15 that would go to more of like an Amazon, but hiring has changed a lot within the recruiting, I think I would say since COVID. And so sometimes we really focus a lot on networking and really making those connections across the board. So hiring timelines. I want to focus not a lot of time on this, but when we think about hiring timelines, I get a lot of students that come in and they're like, okay, well, there's all these like university recruiting roles that it's campus recruiting. They come on campus and they interview a bunch of people and that kind of thing. That has changed a lot also since COVID, to be perfectly honest. And that is pretty much like across from when I talked to a lot of different career centers from across different schools across the country, really top schools. This has really dwindled a lot. And I will say too, for our international students, what is happening too is this university recruiting is a part opportunity and it is there, but these just-in-time is really where these just-in-time opportunities where they're saying, hey, you know what, we could use somebody here, or somebody just left and I need to replace that person. That usually is kind of, I would say, the bread and butter of our just kind of up where our students get jobs. So that's really more looking at within, so you're graduating in August, you start looking more in like that June over the summer, and then kind of thinking from there, especially for international students, a lot of those early university recruiting roles are kind of focused a little bit more on our domestic candidates, not always. So I do encourage you, if there's some companies you're recruiting for or really focusing on, it's never going to hurt to kind of pursue that network and all that kind of thing. But I would say when we think about hiring timelines, most of our students are interviewing and getting selected for those roles around graduation or shortly thereafter. So, how the Career Center works with you. There's a few things that I want to talk about here. One is that there are 2 branches of our office when we think about it from our standpoint. So I am on our coaching team on the maroon side of that. And what I do is I work directly with all of our students. I have said I've worked in career services for 15 or more years. This has been my favorite job as a career center because I get to know our students really, really well. And if you want to get to know me, you will get to know me. So we do a lot of a little bit more hand holding. Whereas before, when I worked at other places, I would work with career centers and I work with students, and there'd be 50,000 students. When I was at NYU, it was like 50,000 students and there was 20 of us, right? For this, there's however many people are in our program, less than 100 people in the program, and I am your career coach, and you also get access to our other 5 career coaches in our office. So it's a really great, you get a lot of face-to-face and individualized support if you choose to pursue it. So we do a lot of workshops and resources, and that's a lot of things that are available. On the other side, we also do have our business development team, our employer relations team. I guess we just renamed them, but they are more of our employer facing. And I work specifically with, there's a handful of our team there, and they are constantly connecting with students, with employers. They're reaching out to new connections. They're brokering different opportunities, specifically across our career center. And so that is really great. And so we work together very closely to make sure that we're bringing opportunities to you that make the most sense. So how we work with you. So like I said, too, individualized coaching, I can't stress that enough because we know that all of you are coming from very unique places and different spaces, and we want to work with you in the way that it makes sense for you. But, we also do a lot of group sessions and workshops. I give presentations all the time. Sometimes it's bringing in and, doing employer events where I'm bringing in panels and that kind of thing. Otherwise, it's doing like a networking workshop or an interviewing workshop or resumes or something like that, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and we understand what is expected in the career, the current market. Um, but we also like the way we work too, is we want to remind you that this is your search and ultimately you own that process, but we are here and we are here to guide you through that. So I would say typically on average, a student might meet with me and one of our other coaches, probably an average of like 8 to 9 times throughout like a 1 year program. And that's pretty normal, right? We want you to be able to utilize us and have those resources as you're available. So I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but when we think about a lot of things, so we have like the career coaching, which is like the workshops and individual presentations or individual meetings and that kind of thing, or the individual connections and talking about all those different things. There's all these different workshops and events. One of the things too that I think is great about being part of the University of Minnesota is as being part of our university. It's a large university. We span so many different places. So we work particularly, so sometimes we partner with the College of Science and Engineering, and they have a data science program as well. And so then they have like a data analytics type of thing. There is a UMN job fair. So we specifically do an event. It's called the Analytics Networking Reception, more towards the end where it's their final semester in the summer. And our goal with that is for you to be able to say, be able to connect and network with different people who are like looking to either now or will be in the future, looking to hire some analytics talent. But aside from that, you also have access to a ton of different job fairs throughout our university. So the Carlson School, especially for our younger population, the Carlson School does host 2 different career fairs, one in the fall and one in the spring, that is specifically for our Carlson students, and only Carlson students are allowed to go to that. But that is a little bit more focused on our undergraduate population. Students are eligible to go to our College of Science and Engineering career fair, which has a little bit of some same employers, some different. And then the university as a whole has a really large career fair that they host every spring. And that is just the gamut. And whoever, there's a lot of different people that go there. But within that, there's a number of different information sessions, site visits. Organizations are here on campus all the time. And so I always encourage students to lean into that and have those conversations. You just never know where you're going to be or what those opportunities are going to be. What I don't have on this actually right now is that there are opportunities just being within the Minneapolis area. And this is a fairly big metropolitan area. And so there are a lot of different hackathons and other local events that we always encourage people to go to, because those are really great places just to network and meet new people and be able to meet new people that are really just as interested in analytics as you are. And then you get a chance to the best networking is where you can I always call it geeking out with people to be able to say, oh man, this is so cool. How did you do that? I want to learn how to do that. And people, that's always just really wonderful conversations and being able to support that and think about it in that way. And our resources and technology, we have a whole website that I was just talking to someone yesterday about. It's very good, but it's a lot of information, and it's a lot of things. So whether that's looking for a resume template or a PowerPoint on how to some tips, or a one-pager on how to write a great resume, and to networking, to interviewing, all of these different things that we work on together. We have a resource called Handshake that we partner with, and Handshake is a place where all of the career fairs I was mentioning, any workshops, any employer events, job fairs, all of those different things, job postings are all, and that's kind of your one-stop shop for a lot of those opportunities that is available to every student and alumni. So even after you graduate, there's things that are available there. Resume books I have in our resources, and that's really one of those things too. That becomes a thing that happens a lot, actually. So right now, with our students that are still seeking from this last class, um, we are working with them specifically to be able to kind of send out resume books constantly. So we were saying, okay, this employer, this opportunity, whether they reach out to us or we reach out to them, they have available, like say there's an opportunity for a data scientist, or this one recent yesterday I was working with was an insights analyst. And then sending the resume book out of people within that match that criteria, working with that alumni or that recruiter, or that hiring manager to build those relationships. So we do a lot of that kind of thing behind the scenes. And that's what I love also about being able to get to know all of our students, is to be able to understand kind of where they're at and what they're looking for. I also included two different other resources that these are organizations that we partner with and that we pay for on behalf of all of our students. So Interview Query is a really great resource that we provide premium access to all of our students, that provides help for technical interviewing. And that runs a gamut of, across the board from like A/B testing to SQL to Python, and a lot of different things. Then there's also Rocket Blocks. Case interviewing is becoming more and more commonplace especially within analytics recruiting, but very much within across the board. And so a lot of that is thinking about case interviewing, saying, hey, this is a situation and how would you handle it? This is a situation that we've dealt with before, and how would you go about solving this problem? And so there's a lot of really good ways and preparation that needs to go into that. And we do a lot of that, whether it's through resources or creating workshops to make sure that you are ready to manage that. So let me talk through MSBA specific. So these are like, I would say 6 of these very common, like some of our big, more platform type things. So right at the top left, we have the career exploration panels. From orientation, whether you're ready to think about career or not, before you even start your program, we have a multi-day orientation that really gets you ready for that. And what we also do is we bring in different alumni or other analytics professionals on different panels to be able to talk about some of their experiences. What are they doing in day in the life? What is a recent project they've done, and that kind of thing, to really help us students to think about, what do I want to do? I say frequently that changes throughout the year. So sometimes people come in and they're like, oh yeah, I know I want to be a machine learning engineer. I'm like, I love all that kind of stuff. I really want to get, or an AI engineer. And then they get into it and they're like, oh, okay, no, I hate Python. I do not want to do that at all. Or vice versa, right? Or something, and then maybe I just want to do analytics or dashboarding or that kind of thing more. And that changes all the time. And that's what I think is great about being in this program, is being able to explore, but in a place where you can bounce your ideas off of people, whether it's of the great faculty we have or ourselves in the Career Center, be able to say, hey, what are some different things that I need to be thinking about as I make my next move and where I focus. In the middle, we have technical focus prep workshops. Like I said, technical interviewing is, I often call it the wild, wild west, where you might get a case interview, you might get a live coding session, you might get a take-home exam. There's so many different things to think about. And so we do a lot of those different things to talk about how can you be prepared? What are some things that you want to be prepared for, and bringing people from there. The West Coast Employer Track. So we are deep in the application process right now for that. Right now, we are planning a trip out to San Francisco, and we will be going over spring break. We historically have kind of gone back and forth between San Francisco and Seattle. So there's a very good chance with that we will likely go back to Seattle in 2027 of spring break. But this year, right now, we have confirmed visits with Google. We're in talks right now with Instacart and Visa and Uber, to be able to bring us to those different places. So that's a really popular thing with as you can imagine, and it's really fun just to kind of see all these different people, be able to have some great networking connections with employers and analytics professionals in the San Francisco Bay Area in this case. And being able to build those relationships. And that's just a really fun thing that we do every year, if we can, as long as we're able to. Analytics, networking, reception. I kind of mentioned this before. We usually have in between around 20-ish employers that come to that. So that is fairly small and just a really good time to just eat food, drink, and have some lemonade and just reach out and connect with some different people. But we usually treat that as the kickoff to the recruiting season. And that's always a fun event and getting those connections there. I mentioned interview query premium access, and that is available all year. Our students this year have already begun, and then we'll do a kickoff, I guess, in January. Finally, the mock interview marathon, and this one doesn't get a lot of playing time or like a lot of pizzazz, I guess, from there. But it is an event that I do love, and it ends up being a favorite event for many, many of our students. And what this is that what we do is I will reach out to analytics professionals, a lot of our alums, people that are working within data science and analytics, and we do a one-on-one 45-minute mock interview with them. So it's great because it's a connection that you're able to make on a one-on-one basis that is orchestrated by us and organized by us. But it also allows you to kind of take those and say, we work on the tell me about yourself or your star stories and all these different behavioral type interviewing. But what these analytics professionals can do is also give you some direct feedback based on their experience and then also be able to probe a little bit more into your technical experience. Whereas somebody like myself might not be able to because I wouldn't know that as much that. But I always consider myself more of a technical recruiter. So in order to get to the people who really know the ins and outs of regression analysis and that kind of thing, you got to get through me, somebody like me who knows the basics of it. Finally, we have a what to expect by semester. And when I think about this, this is how I think about this program because it is an intensive program. And I often say that you really have to, the program gets really busy. And so the first 3 weeks of each semester is when I really focus on like, hey, before it gets too much, you're in the middle of these projects. You really need to focus on those projects so you can learn what you can. But let's focus on these different things. So the fall is really focusing on this career exploration conversations. What do I want to do? What do I like? That kind of thing. Then so the spring is focused a lot on this preparation. So does my resume look good? How am I interviewing? All that kind of thing. And then summer is when you start, hit the ground running. You're applying for jobs, you're networking for the job, and as opposed to just networking for connections and interest and then going from there. And so there's a lot of different things within that we work with. But yeah, that's kind of the way we look at it from this side. One of the main things that I love about working here as well, as I mentioned before about career fairs, about how you have this unique, the tight-knit community of the MSBA program within the Carlson School, within the University of Minnesota, and just the numbers of that and how there's so much networking and so many great connections that can be made, and it just keeps getting bigger. And I think these numbers are actually probably much lower than they actually are because they haven't been updated as maybe since a year or two. But it's just a really great community of people that really want to and are really tied into the university and want to be able to help future people. So the other thing too, and I think this is an important thing to note as well, that not every university offers alumni services for life. And so I think this is important as well, just to know that like the amount of people I always say to an MSBA program. So I don't have Meta on our list of employers, right? Meta is one of those interesting companies too that I think we may have one or maybe not even any that have gone straight to Meta from this Carlson MSBA program. But when I look at my connections and people who have graduated from this Carlson MSBA program that are at Meta now, I think there's about 24 was the last I counted. It might be even more by now. But there's also, and I say that partly because people kind of get the one job and then people move around a lot. And so we are here for life. We're here to support you in whatever journey you're in, whether that's a year after graduation or 20 years after graduation. We're here to support you. So that's about it from me. I will stop talking and I see some questions that have come in. So I'll hand it off to Lindsay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Erin. That was really great. I think a couple of things stood out to me. We work with a lot of business schools, and it's very impressive how many supports that you have for students, especially around the career coaching side. So that individualized support is excellent and something that hopefully everyone takes advantage of should you be joining Carlson. So thank you so much for that. And I see some questions coming through, and we're going to invite Garth back as well onto the screen to answer some of those as well. But first, I also wanted to point out and ask a general question that struck me at the beginning of your presentation, which was around some of those key skills that students should be developing, and some of those are soft skills, communication skills. So this is a really technical program, and how should students be sort of navigating that? Okay, I need to showcase my technical skills, but also develop my soft skills, and where do you see sort of that development and that balance?
Yeah, I could address that too, because I think for that, I look at one of the things I love about working with this program, to be honest, is that we really, as Garth mentioned earlier, before I started, was talking focus on that experiential learning piece. And so some of it just happens naturally through the program. We have a dedicated faculty member that is focused on communications. And so each semester, for the most part, we do a live case. And so they're working with a client on doing like a very technical piece and technical information and diving into data. But then it's not just that, it's really focusing on how can you present this to, and who is your audience? And so those soft skills were really through actual experiential learning of like, you got to work on a team to be able to do that. So that's teamwork that employers want to see, communicating that through whether through its presentation or through just actually having to present to the employer right from the first semester and the fall semester, and being able to kind of get all of those different things. So yeah, it is hugely important. And a lot of it too is one of the ways that through the individualized coaching that we really help is saying some people struggle with it more than others. And my big thing is lean into our office, lean into our team to be able to say, hey, if this is an area where you struggle, all right, let's do it. Like let's do a mock interview every single week. Let's do it twice a week if we really need to, just to kind of practice and practice and practice so that some of those soft skills can get polished and make yourself that go from that great, good candidate to just a standout candidate. It's our goal.
Great. Thanks so much. That makes a lot of sense. I think in terms of the questions that we have, a lot are very technical or specific in nature, but we'll try to address some of those more generally. But I also wanted to point out that on December 17th, if you're really interested in the Carlson MSBA or Carlson itself and want to understand how your profile fits specifically with the admissions requirements, or if this is a program that is a fit for you, we would love to invite you to a meetup with the admissions team. And you can go through a lot more depth through your profile, the specific questions that you have. And I'm going to be sharing in the chat the registration link for that. So please go ahead and register if you really want to have that deeper conversation. And we'll speak more generally as we go through on some of the questions that you've put in the chat. I see a lot around background and being prepared for the MSBA. So Garth, maybe you can address first. There's a question from Adele around having a commerce background and interested in moving into business analytics. So can you speak a little bit more about coming from engineering or math or STEM and how you translate those diverse backgrounds into being qualified for the MSBA?
Yeah, excellent question. So the reason why, so when I was giving that brief primer on our program, I mentioned our prerequisites, right? We have that quantitative and programming prerequisite. The reason why we've set up that application process the way that we have is so that students exactly like yourself can still join our program. You don't have to have an analytics background to come into this program, but you do have to have sort of a baseline level of technical skills and certain technical capabilities so that you could thrive in the classroom. That's really one of the main focus of our admissions process is to ensure that anyone coming into this program will succeed in this program. So while it's absolutely fine if you're coming into this from a finance background, just make sure that you have those prerequisites fulfilled so that you can be admitted. But then also too, just having the prerequisites, that's what's necessary. But any additional technical skills that you could show in your application can only make you more competitive, not only for admission, but it'll certainly make Erin's life easier when you're coming in to the program and you're looking for a job down the road. So if you're interested and passionate about this field, I would definitely encourage you to start developing those technical skills now. The other piece of advice I would have for you, and this goes for any student that's coming from a non-business analytics background, in your applications for our program and for any other programs like it, make sure that you have it put some thought into why you're making this pivot, right? So like be able to explain in the application, like, yes, my background is in a non-related field like finance, but here is why I specifically want this MSBA degree. Here's what I see myself doing in a couple of years. Being able to like show that forethought not only will help you with the admissions process, because the admissions review committee is always looking for that kind of information, but it'll be good information for Erin to have when you're going into the career search process. So she has an idea of like what direction to point you in as far as like what kind of jobs to look for. And it'll also help prepare you for those networking conversations when you're talking to potential employers and trying to explain to them why you're making this pivot. So it's totally fine if you're coming from a different background. Just have some of that logic in place so that you can explain to people why you're making this pivot, and then also to start bolstering those technical skills as well.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with all of that because of the fact is to everybody wants to see that. Employers want to see a well-rounded person, kind of going back to those soft skills. And so think about what you have to offer. What are you bringing to the table in your, in what you have to offer? And so, yeah, the more you can do that, this program has so much of that experiential learning, whether it's through the live cases or the our capstone project or whether it's just through homework assignments. So you can bolster that. Some of our students that come in, they might have a harder time at the beginning of the semester because it's really honed in on like you are going Python hardcore. It is a lot of Python. And so some students that may not have as much of a technical background, they have to put more work into it, but it's absolutely doable. So like the more that you do, the better off you're going to be coming into the program, but it is doable. And just remind yourself, imposter syndrome is real in analytics and in data science, no matter everybody I talk to, right? So it doesn't matter. But just remember too, you are a unique candidate and what you are coming in with, what is your special sauce, as I like to say. What is that extra thing that you have that your classmate might not have, even though they have more technical background, they might have something different and you might have something different that they don't have. So.
Great, thanks. What is your special sauce? We have a couple of questions. We know that data science and analytics are proliferating in all industries nowadays, but how do people transition from a degree in analytics and focusing on data science into different sort of verticals? So we've got questions from Adam on quant finance and modeling career and risk. Tanvi's asking about analyzing with data, product, and investment. So can you speak a little bit more, Erin, into the careers and types of industries people might go into with the MSBA?
Yeah, and I would say I started saying this, I think in the beginning of my presentation, which was the fact that when I first started working with the MSBA program 8.5 years ago, I mean, it's changed quite a bit, right? Before it was like, oh, great, you know how to use Python, done, you're hired, right? Now it's a lot more of like, okay, you have Python or you have predictive or you can do forecasting, you can do these things and what. So we see that kind of merging, I would say, in within the business sector as well. And so every industry, every like whether it's quant finance or modeling or finance or fraud or whatever, you all of those areas, even if it didn't used to have analytics focus, it now has a little bit of an analytics focus. And so what we're seeing too is that like, hey, I have a background in this type of an area, and the job might not be as like a data scientist, right? But then they're going to look at you and say, oh, wow, you have this background and you've done all this like great hands-on experience through this MSBA program. And so now you're able to bring that into, even though I'm not necessarily looking for you to come and build a predictive model, for example, but I know that like, well, now that you've done that, I know that that can be an added value. And so really see a lot of this merging between the different domains and different industries areas to this analytics space and helping you kind of think about it from that point. So yes, we see a lot of areas, and I think we're definitely within a tighter job market and where we're a little bit at right now. A lot of it is it's always a little bit of who you know, but it's even more so. And so we really, really stress this networking and trying to build relationships. And I think that within the Career Center alone, myself, my colleagues, that kind of thing, I'm sure we could find somebody who works in a lot of these spaces to help get people started. So a lot of, especially our internationals come in, they're like, I don't know anybody in the US, or I mean, I don't have as much of a background as some other people. Don't let that stop you. The people that are the most successful are the ones that show grit and drive, that they're not afraid to just go after it. And it's out there. And you can definitely make it happen.
The other thing I'll add very briefly too, when it comes to like wanting to go into a more niche or kind of specific analytics field, that's a place where really you could utilize the electives that you have access to in the program as well. So like if you know you want to combine analytics with finance, right? You could take some elective finance courses. If you really want to dive deep on artificial intelligence, we have AI electives you have access to. So you have 6 elective credits overall that you have access to in the program. And that's really where you can make the degree your own and dive a bit deeper into that topic into a certain subject, if that's your end goal is to kind of go into a more niche or specific analytics role.
Great, thank you. And there's been a lot of questions around profiles, which again, I'd love to point you to the December 17th session if you're very interested in how your profile fits for Carlson in this program. But let's just speak more generally about that. Patrick, you've talked about sort of what kind of undergraduate degrees or diplomas are required to go in. Is IELTS or TOEFL required if you are taught entirely in English? So I'll point these to Garth to generally speak about the general requirements of the programs, and also maybe touch on specifically how Carlson looks at the overall profile holistically and what's important in the admissions process.
Yeah, great question. So I'll give kind of some broader context on like how we do the review process, and then I'll dive deeper into Patrick's specific questions here. So we do a holistic review process. What that means is we look at every single aspect of an applicant in their context. So it's not like a formula where we plug in a student's numbers and it outputs an admit or deny decision. Where multiple people are looking at every single component simultaneously. So no one factor figure is going to determine an admissions outcome for an individual student. And so when the admissions review committee is reviewing an applicant, they're asking themselves a few questions. I'll give you a few examples of the types of questions they ask. They'll first ask, will this student be successful in the classroom? Again, we never want to admit a student that we don't think is going to thrive in the classroom environment. Also, they ask questions like, will this student be a good leader? Are they a good communicator? Will they be a good team member? Do we think they'll find success when it comes to career aspects of the program and after the program? These are the types of questions they're asking. And if the answer to all of those questions is absolutely yes, that student should be competitive for our program. So hopefully that gives you some broader context on how we review students. As far as your kind of more specific questions, as far as like does my combination of degrees qualify me to be admitted to this program? When it comes to questions like that, I always encourage students to reach out to the admissions office to ask those, just because it could be very specific to the individual, and things can be dependent on what country you received the degree from. So I'd say reach out to us, and I'd be happy to, or you can reach out to me directly. I can post my email here in the chat if you want, and you can, and I can sort that out with you individually. As far as your question regarding English language requirements, if you received your undergraduate degree from a certain list of countries, you can qualify for a waiver. Off the top of my head, I believe Ghana is on that list, so you would qualify for a waiver. But again, it could be highly individual to the individual student. So that's another situation where I encourage you to reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk with you individually to confirm with you one way or the other whether or not you would qualify for that. We do accept both IELTS and TOEFL, and there's no preference between different English tests. We just want you to pick the one that you think you will meet the minimums on, at least. So the last thing I'll kind of highlight here when it comes to the admissions process and what we look for in students, and this kind of it's a way of kind of tying everything together as well. Technical aspects and other things aside, something that the faculty have really emphasized to me this last year is that regardless of a student's technical capabilities, technical background, or technical skills, what the students that they see have the most success in the program are the ones that have a passion for this subject matter, right? And that they're able to talk about and show that passion. And kind of going back to something that Aaron was talking about earlier, like the best networking is when you're kind of geeking out with other analytics folks, right? The people that are able to do that, and regardless of what your background is, right? Regardless on if you have a liberal arts or a analytics or a finance background, if you can show passion for this subject matter through your application, through your conversations with prospective employers, that can only set you up for success. So that's something I'd encourage you to kind of ask yourself too: is do you have that passion? Are you able to kind of talk about an article you just read, or like a new book or a personal project that you're working on, how you solved a problem in your life with data? That's the stuff that's really, really, really going to stand out in the admissions review process and will only set you up for success when you're going out and figuring out all the career stuff as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Garth. And I see we're at time here, but we've been able to get through most of the questions. Garth, it would be great if you could share your email in the chat for anybody that wants to send along their resume or transcripts to the admissions team to really review that. But also, again, you have that opportunity on December 17th to join a small group and talk through your profile and see if it's a fit for you. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. If you have joined, you may also qualify for an application fee waiver. And please don't forget to check out our scholarships page, because there are a number of great scholarships that Carlson is offering to those that are engaging with SEED. So once again, lots of great information shared today. A few things stand out in my mind. I also love hearing that passion. So it's not just, are you a fit for the school, but are you passionate about this area? And how are you going to apply that to the industries that you want to work in? So think about that passion for data. Hopefully you've learned a lot about navigating careers and also the immense support that Minnesota Carlson gives its students. It's incredibly impressive and sounds like a very supportive community. So give some thought to that. Hopefully you'll engage with them further in the meetup. And it was great to see all of you join in today and interact and engage throughout the chat and the thoughtful questions that you've asked today. So thank you to our presenters today, Aaron and Garth, and for all of the great advice and expert input they provided to today's session. And have a great day, everyone. Bye. Thank you.